Hello and a big Merry Christmas to you. I'm Leah and I help adults with ADHD who know that they have what it takes but just can't seem to get there. Um, I help them. I help them to get there and do whatever it is that they want to do in their life and with their life. And I wanted to pop on today not only to wish you Merry Christmas, but also to talk a little bit about something I'm going to be doing over the next 12 days. You may have seen posts on social media if you follow me there, and you will have seen that I'm going to be doing over the next 12 days, sort of a play on the 12 days of Christmas. We're going to do the 12 myths of ADHD. And the reason I wanted to do that is there are so many myths surrounding ADHD, so many misunderstandings. And some of you may know that I was only diagnosed with ADHD and autism at 43, which was earlier this year. And actually, many of these myths I'm guilty of myself, not anymore, but certainly before my diagnosis. And I've been a therapist for over 8 years. So, if I don't know that, if I didn't know those things, then it's no surprise that there are lots of other people out there that don't really understand ADHD. So I wanted to do something to address that. And so today I'm going to start with the first myth, which is that ADHD isn't a real condition. Well, it is. Simple as that. It absolutely is. And obviously, I can say that from my own experience. Um, but actually, this is one of the few disorders of the brain that a psychiatrist would see. Um, and I'm saying it like that because there are lots of disputes over what category you would put ADHD in. Some people say mental illness, some people say developmental disorder, and more things besides. So, of the people that a psychiatrist would see, this is the one condition where, maybe not the only one, but certainly one of the main conditions where there's actually documented MRI evidence to show differences in the brain between people who have ADHD and people who don't. But it doesn't stop people thinking that ADHD isn't real. And I think part of that reason, certainly in the UK, is that, for years, ADHD was just seen as a condition of really naughty little boys, and there was a lot of controversy around whether this was just bad parenting and people making excuses for bad parenting. So, yes, that's where it's come from, but actually, there is so much evidence that it does exist. And for those people who suffer with ADHD or who have ADHD, then the main areas that are affected are things like impulsivity, attentiveness, focus, organizational skills. And the reason for it is that within an ADHD brain, the parts of the brain that are there to guide, so they act a bit like a teacher or maybe a conductor, and they kind of guide the brain and reduce down any inappropriate impulses, making sure that you are doing the things that you ought to be doing. These are things that develop as we get older, and they are deficient in one way or another in people with ADHD. So it's much harder for people to control impulses, to hold their attention on one thing, and as demonstrated by a bit of paper here, hold things in their memory. um, I wanted to have this stuff on the paper because I wanted to get the figures right. So uh, in the UK, there are estimated to be 1.5 million adults living with ADHD, and estimates of the percentage of the population who have ADHD are between 5 and 11%. So that means that in a room of 20 people, you absolutely have one person with ADHD, probably two, which means that if you work in a reasonably sized business, then the chances are that one of your colleagues has ADHD, even if they don't know about it. And that's the thing, a huge proportion of adults, certainly in the UK, are not diagnosed. It's not something that's very, very well known. I live in Plymouth in Devon, and in this area there are no dedicated centre, or there is no dedicated centre for diagnosing or treating ADHD and autism. So for those of us that get some inkling that they have ADHD, it's a case of going off and finding somebody that will diagnose you in one way or another. But of course, that means that where there's very little diagnosis going on, and I know that's not the case for the whole of the country, but where there's very little diagnosis going on, then is very little awareness amongst the medical profession, and therefore many of these myths are things that they also believe too, and they're not on the lookout for adults with ADHD. I heard a shocking statistic yesterday which says that it's estimated that about 40% of the population of prisons actually have undiagnosed ADHD. And it makes sense, because what happens for a lot of people who are undiagnosed is they go off and they self-medicate, and they have problems controlling their impulses and sometimes get into trouble. Anyhow, I feel like I've talked enough and I don't want to bore you. So I hope that's been really useful to you. Don't forget, I'm running a competition on Instagram to win a free assessment consultation with me. If you're already one of my clients or have had an assessment consultation with me, you can actually swap that into a full session. So please do go on over to my Instagram page, and I'll put the links below, and sign up for the competition. I think it ends the 5th of January 2020. This is Christmas 2019 if you're watching this later on. Excuse me, I've got the hiccups, oh dear. And yeah, it's going to be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to working with somebody new that gets to come along as a winner of the competition. So if you don't want to wait for the competition, or you just want to find out a little bit more about what it's like to work with me and what it's like to have your brain working alongside you, then what most people do is they book one of these assessment consultations. We tend to be on video calling, unless you happen to be near my clinic in Plymouth in Devon. And we basically talk about what's been going on for you. I find out a bit more about what it is that you want to achieve, what you're particularly having problems with, and I will explain to you not only exactly how I can help, but the reasons why, so that by the end of the session you've got a really good understanding of what the plan would be and why, so that you can make an informed decision about whether you want to work with me. And we may or may not be a good fit for each other, and that's okay, because it's all backed up by my money back guarantee. So if you are paying for the session rather than having won it in the competition, then if you get to the end of the session and you think, this isn't for me, or even if I decide that we're not a great fit together, then your money is refunded in full, no questions. So you only pay for the assessment if it's part of a bigger treatment plan. So I hope that makes sense, and have a wonderful Christmas, and I will see you again tomorrow. Take care. Bye bye.